This is the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with your host, Vicki Davis.
Today's sponsor is EverFi. April is Financial Literacy Month, and they have fantastic free digital lessons for K-12 students. So stay tuned at the end of the show to learn more about these valuable lessons. Today we have Dr. Tracee Perryman with us today. She has a new book called Elevating Women Leaders, Stories of Strength, Survival, and Success. Today, we are talking, Dr. Perryman, about elevating our women leaders.
It's my pleasure, and it's my passion to speak on this topic as well.
So there are groups of people that without focus, they just have different needs of the way that we've always met. We thought we met needs, right? What is your message about why they need to empower their women leaders?
So I think that you've hit on one of the cruxes of the book and really where I start. And it's about women identifying their unique values and their motivations for what they're doing and why they're doing it. Now, to answer your question more directly, we've seen a lot of women exit the workforce, particularly since COVID. And I think that anytime you have an entire group of people exit the workforce, exit organizations, you're losing a unique skill set. And you're losing capacities, gifts that make our organization stronger. So for that reason, I think it's going to be very important for employers to look at why women are leaving. I think childcare can be a reason, but if there are other incentives or other reasons to become engaged, then as women, what do we do? And so when we talk about unique needs, it's very important to start with women understanding what their needs are and being honest with themselves about what their needs and their wants and their desires are. As a society, we have often suggested to women or even imposed on women what their values should be, what their wants should be, what their desires should be, and even the appropriateness of acting on their wants, their values, and desires. And so we can only operate from what women are willing to disclose. Otherwise, that's disempowering if we assume that we know what all women need. So the book, Addressing Unique Needs, we start with women first becoming honest with themselves about what their needs and wants are so that we have a baseline to work with.
I was in the business world, and I actually left for a 7-year period to be a stay-at-home mom, a decision I do not regret. But it did take me a while to be honest that needs weren't being met. So Tracee, can we start with some of the mistakes that schools might make as they're trying to empower their women leaders?
I think that it starts again with schools going to the root of what their true values are. I think sometimes in organizations, the funding and legislation drives our decision-making to the point that we forget about the people that help us carry out the work. So I think that is issue number one. Sometimes, particularly in education, we start to see teachers and ministers as commodities. And because in our society, women are often discouraged from speaking up. And oftentimes, women lead homes by themselves and they have to be mindful of how saying no could hurt their families. Organizations take advantage of that. And they ask women to do things that they don't ask men to do.
I have seen it. Here's the thing that happens is that if you're working all day and you have a million duties and you're doing homeroom and you're doing a club and you're doing prom and you're doing all this other stuff, and then you don't have time to grade and you go home and you want to play with your babies and you want to fix them a good dinner and then you tuck them in and then you're grading until 2 a.m. and you go to sleep for 2 or 3 hours and start it again. That is not sustainable.
Right. It is not sustainable. And I say all the time, education, particularly being a teacher in the classroom, is one of those fields that taxes us emotionally, cognitively, and physically all at the same time. And to add to the list of demands that you referenced is processing the social, emotional, and behavioral issues that we encounter in the classroom and having to go home and think about, okay, we had this particular issue with this child and trying to figure out how we're going to address it the next day. And then after we put in place our plan, ask the questions, did I jump to a conclusion too fast? Was I understanding enough? Did I let this go too far? Should I have said something 2 weeks ago? And then I'm going to have a justification for the parents, a justification for the principal, and sometimes a justification for the administration and board. All of that as well. And it's not sustainable.
I know a lot of teachers that are caring for aging parents, so it's not just having children. So you said start with empowering women to speak up about the real issues, because sometimes administrators will say, I had no idea until they resigned. And we don't want that to happen either, because getting people to speak up gives administrators the opportunity to try to help them be able to stay, right?
Absolutely. So speaking up can be complicated, right? And that's why oftentimes administrators avoid it. So I think, first of all, building a culture of solutions, solution-focused dialogue is very important. I think also reaching out to mentors and mental health professionals that can help members of the team process everything that's happening. And I'm also a licensed professional counselor. And so oftentimes in the first session, when we ask what's wrong, there's so many things going on. It's like, I don't even know. And then everything starts fishing out. And oftentimes administrators are not prepared or equipped to process all those things.
Yeah.
I think that's important to have mental health professionals, mentors to process so that we can equip women to be clear about what they need, what's failing, and to help propose solutions. And I think administrators should take similar training so that they know what our solutions would align with best practices. Another thing I suggest that teachers do is review the research on self-care strategies and then also strategies for managing specific types of situations in the classroom. As women teachers, we often second guess ourselves. And so a lot of our fatigue comes because we cannot come to resolution about our decisions. So I think really looking at the research on social emotional development of children, the issues that they're facing, appropriate strategies will help us in our decision making. So if I make a certain decision about a specific child, I know that I operate within best practices. And so I can finally come to a resolution and not feel like I didn't do enough.
I used to be one of those women who apologized all the time for everything, even things I didn't do. And as I've matured, I've learned how to get past that and be accountable, be direct, not always second guess. I mean, you can only control what you can control. You can't control that that child is exhausted, that child is tired.
Well, so I think one of the reasons why women are persistently apologizing is because it's cultural and it's society imposed. We feel as women that we have to placate everyone and everything. And as women, we are often afraid of awkward space. And so if we can feel like we apologize, we feel like we're making our communication more palatable. And so then there'll be a resolution to it, and then the awkwardness will go away, and we don't feel like we are going to be public enemy number one. If we can get past those things, then we can start moving forward with assertiveness that is rooted in actually finding solutions. I think one of the ways that I address that is in my book. So part of going through values is building a brand. Each one of us has the capacity to build a brand, a personal brand, and then to stand by it. I wrote a poem a long time ago. It was called I Won't Apologize. I won't apologize for how I look. I won't apologize for my hair texture, my skin color, the width of my nose, my loudness, my sassiness, the stiletto heels that I wear when I walk into a classroom. Still loving all of what makes me me. I won't apologize for it. It's my brand and I stand by it. So I think the first step is helping women be comfortable with who they are in their own skin. I think with age, naturally, we do better at this, but I think giving women the language to positive self-talk and really training them to be bold in it and not apologetic for it and keep practicing it until you feel comfortable helps with such issues. Because if we're not apologizing for not giving the child everything that we need, we're apologizing for holding people accountable. We're apologizing for being honest, right?
Honesty is a good thing. Like, why are we apologizing for being honest?
That's right. We apologize for being authentic. And oftentimes women who apologize at work are apologizing in every area of their life. And that goes into the imposter syndrome where we feel like we don't belong. So I think it starts with personal affirmation of us being who we are and not being afraid of it, not being apologetic of it, and understanding that everybody has to grow into their position. No one comes having all the answers. We make the best decisions we can with the information given and the resources at the time.
One thing, I work in computer science, and so one of the issues that I have to teach my students is that apps and tools are better when you have diverse people that give you feedback and give you input. And it's a message that we have got to get across to our whole society, or else we're going to end up in a mess with bias in AI, which is already there. So more is caught than taught. And so we want to have schools where all the kids see women who are leaders, men who are leaders, that every voice is valued. Like, this is a strategic issue for our future, that we include people and that we respect people for being you're a human being. I respect you. Now, sometimes people behave in ways that you don't respect, but as a human being, you have to respect a person. They have value. They have a right to believe as they choose. But as we finish up, could you give a word to administrators about really helping there be a culture where it's okay to be honest and not apologize for it?
I think I would say to administrators to resist the temptation to be afraid. And as administrators, just trust that we have broad enough shoulders to hear the uncomfortable conversations and be motivated by the right things, right? When we treat people well, they're more productive, they're more motivated, and with time, you become more energized than depleted. And I tell myself all the time, you work harder running from issues than you ever do attacking them head on.
Oh,
And I think also, as public administrators of public schools and public funds, resisting the temptation to think that the buildings are ours. I think that's where we get in trouble, because when we put up an exterior as if the building, this is our domain, then we take responsibility for things that we can't control, and that's how we get in trouble. So when we start thinking about it as our community, then we're more likely to get grace from our teachers and others and support, and we're more in a better position to solve problems together.
excellent. Dr. Tracee Perryman, her book that's topping the charts is Elevating Women Leaders, Stories of Strength, Survival, and Success. And she's also written Elevating Futures, a model for empowering Black elementary student success. Thank you for coming on the show, Dr. Perryman. Now let's talk about today's sponsor, Everfi, that made this episode possible. Everybody remembers that teacher, the study hall teacher who walked you through your first college application, the social studies teacher who taught you what taxes were and how to file them, the math teacher who used student loans to show you how interest worked. You can be that teacher. And Everfi wants to help you make that kind of impact with free digital lessons for K through 12 students. From budgets and banking to credit and savings, you will find a financial literacy topic that's right for your classroom, just like I have. And especially during April, Financial Literacy Month. There is no better time to equip students with smart decision-making around finances. So learn how you can share these free resources with students and give them a financial foundation that lasts a lifetime. BERFI.com/coolcat.
You've been listening to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. If you want more content from Vicki Davis, you can find her on Facebook, X.com, TikTok, Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube at Cool Cat Teacher. Thank you for listening.